Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. Today we're taking a look at the Boox Nova Air C. So this is the 7.8-inch successor to the previously released Nova Air, but this time it comes in color. So let's check it out. And this is the Boox Nova Air C this time. So just a short overview. This is a 7.8-inch e-ink color device that is running on Android 11. It is Google Play enabled, has an octa-core CPU, 3 GB of RAM, 32 GB of internal storage, non-expandable. It has myriads of functionalities that you would expect from a standard Android tablet. You can do writing on it, so you can have your notebooks, writing, scribbles, you can annotate documents, you can use it as a reader, as a Kindle, as a Kobo. You can annotate documents, you can annotate books, you can export your annotations, and all sorts of other good things. Nova Air C is the latest addition to the ever-expanding, quickly expanding Boox lineup of devices, e-ink devices, and it is a it's coming shortly at the heels of the Nova Air, which is its monochromatic, very slightly older sibling. It costs $420 before tax and shipping, and that is a package deal. In that package you get a pen, and then you get a cover, magnetic cover as well, that has programmable buttons on the side that you can use for page flipping, or you can program them to be home, back, or whatever it may be that you want. However, if that was not high enough, if you actually go to the Boox's EU store shop, you will see that that package deal is discounted from 500 euros to 485 euros. And that kind of a price range for a 7.8-inch device of any sort is extremely high. What seems to be a little bit even more confusing to me is that on the same store, if you go and check out the Nova Air is $350 on their Chinese shop, or the whatever default shop, again before tax and shipping. But when you go to the EU store and you look at Nova Air, it costs 350 euros. So base price is supposed to be $420, but the availability of the device is kind of limited. They said that the stock should be back in May, but here we are mid-May, and I don't know exactly when they meant. Was it beginning, middle, or end? Well, the beginning and middle are now gone, so that only leaves the end of May. So we will see when the stock will come back into play. Either way, regardless of what it actually is, the price is extremely high. $420 or euros is really high. 485 quoted euros. I hope that it's just a mistake, but whichever of the prices is true, even in the best case scenario, it's a very, very pricey device. The design is pretty much exactly the same as the Nova Air. The only difference is the color on the front and the color on the back, and how this has been treated down here. So there are some stylistic differences here, but for all intents and purposes, this is exactly the same. The identical housing, identical dimensions, everything exactly the same as Nova Air. Hence, this is Nova Air, but C for color. As such, I really loved the Nova Air's design, and I really love the Nova Air C design as well. It looks really, really good and stylish. You will know that I am not a huge fan of a black outline for reading devices. So personal preference, this is just a personal preference. For me, I prefer the Nova Air because it just looks a little bit more stylish and it's easier to read, and you don't have a lot of contrast battling, but some people may prefer this. Either way, personal preference aside, the objective fact is that this is a very stylish looking device. There's no button on the top, we have a completely flush screen, and it's a really, really nice kind of matted down surface that is dulling down the reflections, although not as good as the Nova Air. The back is really lovely. It's not plastic, this is a magnesium alloy, and you have a very nice kind of matte gummified surface down here. As far as the layout goes, on the top we have a power button with the LED, status LED. On the side we have the indication, clear indication, thankfully, of where the magnetic pen goes. On the other side, we have the data communication with the magnetic cover with the controllable or programmable switches. And on the bottom, we have stereo speakers, a microphone, and a USB-C for charging, data communication, and also if you have USB-C to 3.5mm adapter type of headphones, that will work or should work as well. Overall, I love the build quality of the Nova Air C. I can attest to the build quality because if it is as durable and robust and as quality built as the Nova Air, which I have had now for close to a year, not exactly, but very close to a year. Yeah, this one has served me extremely well, and it's all the time with me, and it's being chucked around and just works, you know, just a device that works. And that seems to be something that's going to translate onto here. And also I have my Note Air, the original Note Air, for over a year and a half now, and that one also didn't have a single fail, and it also just works. So this feels, looks, and performs like a very, very high quality product, which it is, and it most definitely should be because of that very high price point. As far as the specifications go, well, as I said, it's a 7.8-inch on-cell Kaleido Plus screen. So this is the new generation of the on-cell Kaleido Plus screens. It has the same type of specifications as the previous Kaleido Plus. So it is 1872 by 1404 resolution for black and white, giving it 300 ppi resolution, or 624 by 468 in color, or it doesn't have separate modes. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but either way, for color content you get 100 dpi, for black and white content you get 300 ppi simultaneously. It is not either or, it's at the same time. It has both capacitive touch, and it uses a standard EMR Wacom type of a layer, so any EMR compatible pen will work on a device like this. It has an updated Snapdragon processor, which is also octa-core like it was on the Nova Air, but it's running on a slightly higher frequency at 202 GHz as opposed to 1.8 GHz. Has the same 3 GB of LPDDR4X RAM, has 32 GB of eMMC storage, non-expandable. As far as connectivity goes, it has a standard 2.4 GHz, 5 GHz Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth 5.0, it has a dual front light, separately controllable intensity, and of course you can turn it on or off and vary the intensity of both of the colors. It runs a battery of 2000 milliamps, Android 11 Google Play enabled device, has a support for all of these documents types that you can see on the screen, and the audio files as well. It does support DRM, but not with the native reader, so only third-party apps that are supposed to support DRM content, such as Kindle or Kobo, so they will work like they would on any other Android device. And it has the same dimensions, 194 by 136 millimeters, 6.3 millimeters thick, however you want to call it. I think it's on the thinner side of things, and it is weighing at 235 grams. Nova Air for me never lacked any power, and this one is because of a more modern infrastructure inside and the software side because of the Android 11. It just actually runs a little bit faster and a little bit better, so all good on that front as well. If you watched my previous videos, you'll know that I am not a big fan or a proponent of the Kaleido technology that is being used. The reason behind it is that inherently the technology itself, no matter how far it's being pushed, has certain limitations that are physically impossible to overcome. So therefore, that puts the manufacturers into a position where the starting point is just a ginormous compromise. When your starting point is that you already can see the maximum potential of the technology and it's not really that far, nor that impressive, nor that amazing, that doesn't excite me. So that's something I've received, like questions like, how come you're not excited about color e-inks? Well, that's the reason why. Because the technology that we have now isn't exciting. It really is not for me. But I do understand that there is a lot of people who are really excited for having the ability of having some kind of usable color content on their e-ink panels. And therefore, I'm trying to do an objective job here and kind of review what it is and how it works. The technology behind it, it's still Kaleido Plus, but this is the new panel. This is the on-cell version of the Kaleido Plus, which is, improves a little bit of contrast, improves a little bit of brightness and all that kind of stuff, and you can actually see these things. So it's an iterative update at best on a panel side of things, but the dual color front light really does make a big difference. So when you're comparing Nova 3 Color and Nova Air C, they feel that the end result is a lot more than just the difference in the panel itself, and I think that's an important differentiation to make. Microscopic analysis reveals that, no surprise there, it's the same structure as the Kaleido Plus. The only difference is that you get a little bit more clarity and a little bit more contrast. So that's not that tremendously interesting. If you're more interested into understanding how Kaleido panels work, I'll link the video in the description down below where I actually talked about this. So more stuff was covered there in depth, and you can check that video out to see if you're interested to learn more about how does the color e-ink work and why you have 300 ppi for black and white and why you have 100 ppi for color content. And just to clarify yet again, because a lot of people get confused by this, there isn't a digital switch, there isn't a control, it's not an either or, it's a combined type of a display. It's just that the physical basis of the solution of that screen gives you 3 black pixels per 1 color pixel that it's able to display. That's pretty much it. So there's no switching involved and there's no color or black and white mode. It just displays the black color at 300 ppi. Everything else that's not a black color or a white color, it displays at 100 ppi. One thing that actually got to be quite interesting for me at least is when I was using the microscope to examine the structure of the screen, I also noticed the structure of the surface panel on top of the screen itself. Because when I started writing on Nova Air C, it felt smoother, less paper-like, and also it had different reflective properties. Not bad, but a little bit more reflective, a little bit, tiny bit more glary than the Nova Air C. And then I tested back to back, like writing with the same pen on one and then on the other, and it kept feeling different. So then I put both of them under the microscope to examine the actual structure of the panel, and that's where it actually got interesting. Definitely there's a difference in structure and possibly even the material that's being used between the two devices. And as you can see, the Nova Air C is more smoother, it's more rounder. The bumps are more rounder and they're more kind of frequent. So that translates into a smoother, more glidey like of an experience. Not like glass or anything like that. It's not flat, it's still nice, it feels good. But as you can see here on Nova Air, you have that bumpiness, but you also have sporadic peaks, so to speak. And that, I believe, combination with that structure and maybe a different material that's being used gives you a more paper-like feel. So for me personally, Nova Air, the monochromatic one, feels more paper-like, has better sound when writing, and has a more satisfying feel, and good amount of resistance for me when writing. But that means that you are more likely to spend the soft nibs a little bit more quickly on that rougher surface, and that's why you can see those peaks actually kind of eating away at the soft nib. The contrast here is the Nova Air C, a little bit smoother, still feels okay, but not that much paper-like. It's still pleasant, but a little bit different. So this is going to be down to a personal preference, but I just wanted to kind of share that experience so that you know what to expect. When I was testing out the screen spacing, it was also interesting to see that the new on-cell Kaleido Plus, or maybe it's not down to it, maybe it's just the Nova Air C, how it's organized, but the space between the surface of the screen, basically where your pen lands, and where the actual screen panel is, the display that you are going to see your image on, that screen space distance, that's what I'm calling distance to the screen. Normally this is at around 1 to 1.1 units. That's close to millimeter, but it's not fully on calibrated, so I'm just going to call it units. So normally you get like on Boox devices, on front-lit devices, you get it at 1 or 1.1 units of that distance. More is a bigger distance. Surprisingly, on the Nova Air C, that distance was actually somewhat higher at around 1.4. So that's something that you actually do feel when you're writing. I don't feel completely disconnected from it, but it's definitely not something that goes in favor. And that also, I think, was one of the things that made me feel that writing on the Nova Air was a little bit more pleasant and a little bit more connected. Next, I've done the measurement and comparison of the screen whiteness of each of these panels. Now, as you know, e-ink screen technology is the white pixel is not going to be white when it's not front lit. So we're just talking about not non-front lit panels. Instead, it's going to be a shade of gray. And again, here is one of the inherent limitations of the Kaleido technology. It doesn't matter which one it is, it's always going to be like that, because on top of those pixels, white pixels that are already not white to begin with, you have this layer of very, very small, but still it's there, of red, green, and blue little dye kind of filters on top of it, and that further dims out the brightness. So the capability of this technology, the whitest possible pixel that it's going to be able to display, its white color is never going to be as white as a monochromatic e-ink device can. So here you have a little gradient that shows on the far right you have the pure white pixel colors, and that is measured at 100% of whiteness. I've captured the images and then equalized the value of the white area for each of these devices under the same conditions, and Nova Air has the screen whiteness at 81% of pure white, right? So that is an average kind of. The Nova Air C, with its new on-cell Kaleido Plus screen, the white pixel on the Nova Air C is 61% of the white color. And that's fairly low, and quite a lot lower than what you actually get on the monochromatic screen. However, that is somewhat better than what we used to have way back. So basically the first iteration of these was Poke 2 color, and that one measures out at 57% of white color. So the technology is moving forward. It is getting better, but it is still very far away from what we already have on current monochromatic e-inks. And please don't forget that a lot of users do say that, hey, it's too dark. Even the 81% of whiteness for some people is too dark. So if you're one of those, then you can only imagine how dark this one will actually be. Now, that inherent limitation of having a very dark starting point for a Kaleido screen was a very big limitation for Poke 2 color and for Nova 3 color because of that front light, right? They only had a singular front light. It was really not that good, and it didn't combine, it just didn't work. This is where that dual front light configuration on the Nova Air C comes in to actually save the day. So the combination of slightly better contrast, slightly better sharpness of the on-cell Kaleido Plus, and that really good dual front light with independent control, intensity control, and it's fairly uniform, actually allows you to compensate for that darkness and to brighten up the display of the unit itself without compromising the contrast and the saturation of the colors that are displayed. So the raw performance of the Kaleido Plus, on-cell Kaleido Plus panel is limited, but the combination of the technologies used, the end result is that on the Nova Air C, for the first time that I've experienced, you are able to fine-tune the end result, the display that you're actually seeing, and that it looks pleasing and it's easy to use. So yes, there is that darkness limitation, but it's not a deal breaker because that front light saves the day on the Nova Air C. Nova Air C has the same 2000 milliamp battery like the Nova Air does, and the battery performance is actually fairly similar, which means rather good. So I do the test for reading performance and writing performance. For reading, I set the reader to actually auto-flip pages, 20 seconds per page, so it keeps one page for 20 seconds, then flips it another, simulating kind of like a real reading experience. I set the front light at different intensities, and I let the device to actually flip those pages for 1 hour, and then I actually see the values. It's always going to use Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth off across the board. The only thing that changes is the front light intensity. With the front light turned completely off, the device was spending around 2% per hour, which roughly amounts to 50 hours or more of reading time without a front light enabled and Wi-Fi on. With that front light pumped up to 50%, the consumption rises to 3% per hour, which averages out to around 33 hours of reading time per charge. And when you ramp up that front light all the way to 100%, then the consumption jumps up all the way to 17% per hour, totaling at around 5.9 hours of total reading time at that intensity. But I gotta say that the inherent nature of an e-ink display just means that you will probably never ever use it at 100%. There's really no objective situation where you will need to use it at such intensities. In my personal experience, I normally use it at around a third, a quarter, most likely it's around 25%. In real world environment, you're likely to see the battery performance somewhere between 35 and 50 hours of reading time per charge, which is of course excellent. Writing test, I sit down and then I write for 1 hour at different intensities. So this time, because of that 100% front light, you will never use that for writing, so I don't even test it because it's meaningless. But I do test it at 0% of front light. And in both cases, writing is a performance intensive operation. And I am seeing the same results here, which is that the pure demand of the CPU and everything to process the writing data at the speeds that this device delivers it overshadows the amount of power that is required by the front light. So the ending result is that you have roughly the same average between no front light on and front light at around 50%, and that means that the device was spending around 12% of battery per 1 hour of continuous writing. I'm talking about continually writing, no pauses, no nothing. And that amounts to around 8.3 hours of continuous writing, which is more than excellent, because writing continuously for 8.3 hours is a lot of writing, and you're not likely to do that in a day. But even if you would, this device would be able to actually last well beyond a full work hour of no bathroom time, no lunch time, no rest time, just writing. So yeah, it's got you covered there as well, which is a good thing. This is a review loan sample that I got from Boox, and that one actually shipped with a standard pen and with the old Nova Air flipbook cover, which didn't match the color or anything like that. Now, since that has been shipped out to me, I have heard and seen that there is a proper, adequate matching flipbook cover available for the Nova Air C, which has a black line and black buttons, so that's nice and all good. So the cover is definitely different than what I received as a review sample, so when you actually purchase this, you should be able to get a matching, properly nice matching cover. I don't have it, so I can't really show it, but what you do get with it is the new pen, Boox Pen Plus, which I've already talked about. It's a standard pen, and it is a normal standard nib, so the same one that you actually use on a Remarkable, on some of the previous Boox pens and other, let's say, Samsung pen that I like to use, etc., etc. So this is like a regular, most easily obtainable standard of a felt tip, and it feels rather good. As a standard pen that comes out of the box with the package, I think that it feels great. It's magnetic, so it snaps into place. It holds on well with the magnet, but super high kind of pressures will make it drop off, but for normal use it's actually okay. But if you're carrying it in a bag or some sort, then I would actually recommend, well, my personal preference is actually the folio that folds over and then it just holds everything protected from all the sides, not the flip book cover. But then again, that's a personal preference. I just like, you know, the more practical side of things that keeps the pen on the side as well, so I don't have to hunt it around if it becomes detached in a bag or something like that. But overall, great feeling pen, easy compatibility with different nibs, good magnet, feels good, works good, good pressure sensitivity, a nice addition to complete the package. One of the things that's important to note is that the Nova Air was shipping with a white version of this and really strange kind of hard plastic nib on top, and they were still kind of figuring things out and were kind of passing it around. But since then they have finally figured it out and they are using two pens. They have the Boox Pen Plus and the Pen 2 Pro, I believe it's called, and those are the ones that you're going to be expecting now to use with all of the devices and get with all devices, and both of them have the same type of a felt nib, which is a good thing. The writing experience on the Nova Air is very good. Basically, you have the same exact set of tools and functionalities like you would on any of the other Boox devices, Nova Air included, with the obvious difference being that this one has a color display, which means that with added color palette that's available on all of the Boox devices now for writing, you are actually able to see these colors and you can use them to write in your in your notebook. Now you're also able to do some sketches as well. Now this one has a lot of strokes, so let's wait for it to load, and that's something I want to show you. It's like if it has a ton of strokes, then you have this, then you will have a little bit of a wait, which is normal because this is like thousands of strokes and several layers and everything. But you also see this kind of ghosting, so you do have to go and refresh to get it clean, but you never gets totally clean, so you would need to actually map out a refresh function down here for a gesture, and then it works. And that's something that I do actually advise you to do, because you are going to be hitting that refresh button very, very often. Now let's get on to a clean page so that you can see how things work. All right, so let's pick a normal preset brush, make it a little bit thinner, and writing normally, quite fast and responsive. As far as the writing feel goes, Nova Air C actually has a smoother type of a feel, a little bit more glidey, less paper-like than this one, and you can actually hear that. So let me just get up the microphone. So as previously discussed and showed with the microscopic images and everything in the screen section, yeah, the surface, the top surface is definitely different. So the writing experience is different. Nova Air is a little bit more pleasant for my personal taste, but this one will be more pleasant for others. I like more of a scratchy feel, more paper-like kind of feel. It's a nice tactile feel to have some resistance when writing. This one's not super glidey or anything. It's still miles beyond anything that you would get like on a regular tablet, but still, when compared to the Nova Air that it supersedes, then it is a difference. That being said, the soft nibs will be spent more quickly on the Nova Air than they will be spent on the Nova Air C. So you have that kind of balancing thing going on as well. Now let me just kind of delete this and yeah, choose some kind of a thicker pen and a little bit of color, so we can write in color too, and then you can just change the color to whatever you want. My color number 2. And then you can add, let's say, what don't we have? Yellow. So let's go and a little bit of yellow, depending on what kind of front light you're using. Currently I have like about a third of the front light turned on, so if I turn it off, then you will see that some of the colors will pop up a little bit more, but overall the screen gets darker. So that's something that we've also talked about. That darkness of the screen is a little bit of an issue depending on where you're at. It's a lot better than what we've had so far, so better than Nova 3 color, absolutely better than Poke 2 color. Where Nova Air C absolutely again is better than the Nova 3 color is that we now have a dual front light, and that is a very important difference, because what you had previously on Nova 3 color was just the blue light. And that one did not work well at all, and even on this one, even the blue color is just a lot better than what we had on the Nova 3 color, was it called? But now you have the full complement of warm and cold light, and you can adjust it any way you want. The brightness range is huge, so depending on what you actually want and what conditions you are in, you can always adjust it any way you like. What I would like to be able to see at least at some point is the ability that the link works, so that even when the two values are not the same, that they just are linked proportionally, and then you have another button maybe to kind of equalize them, right? So that I can maybe increase intensity of the hue that I wanted to set up. But it's a small nibble, it's not such a big deal at all. The most important thing here is that you can fine-tune that front light to compensate for the darkness, natural darkness of the on-cell Kaleido Plus screen, and then make it pop out a little. And the good news is that the front light is not washing out these colors as much as one would think. So it's actually a very, very usable front light, and it expands the writing experience and helps out the writing experience to actually make the device more usable in more bigger variety of conditions. Now, as far as the brushes go, this is not going to be a tutorial on what kind of brushes you have all the way and functionalities. I'm just going to go briefly through these things. So you have the pen, then you have a brush, again pressure sensitive, not that much pressure sensitive. Let's just put it to a bit more. So yeah, but it could get thinner. It would be nice to actually go a little bit thinner, especially for a brush. Then you have a ballpoint pen, which is not pressure sensitive. So this is your non-pressure sensitive brush. And then you also have a graphite pencil. Let's use maybe a color black for this one, which is pressure sensitive. But the weird thing is that it's not getting wider depending on how you shade. However, this one has been improved quite a lot since its early days, and now finally you are able to start using it more like a graphite pen. It's not on the level of remarkable yet. First of all, it doesn't have tilt, it doesn't detect the tilt, and the second of all is that the brush itself is not so sophisticated, but compared to where it used to be like 2 years ago, this is actually quite nicer, and now it finally functions and can be used as some sort of a graphite pen. And finally, you also have a highlighter, which is for highlighting text and things like that, but then again, it's not really that opaque, or yeah, it's a little bit too opaque. Okay, as far as the actual functionalities go, there's far too many to cover in a video like this, so this is something that I will try to do if and when I get some free time, but just let's cover basics here. On the top, you have your main toolbars where you will find your brush presets, and you can easily add a new brush preset by using this icon here, which is a brush and a plus sign next to it, and then you can just add them and modify them either way. If you want to delete a brush, you just simply select that brush, press on the can, delete it, that's it. Next to it you have an eraser, undo, redo, and one of the new things in 3.2.2 is that the page layout has been merged with the page numbers as well. So now you can actually tap on the numbers and you can scroll to a page that you want or a number that you want, and that's pretty much it. So that's pretty good that you can actually, if you have a bigger notebook, now things are a little bit easier to find. On the left hand side, this is a main toolbar, and this one can be located to right hand side or the left hand side depending on what you want, and this is where all of your tools are, and this is fully customizable. So here, first icon is full screen, toggle and toggle back from the full screen. Then you have your control of layers, and your template is basically one of the base layers here. Then you have the ability to adjust the canvas, which works a little bit weird, so I can't really get into it, but if you get over the way of how it functions, it gives you the theoretical capability to expand and have a virtual canvas, meaning that it can be twice as wide, twice as tall, or twice as wide and tall, so that you can actually have a bigger piece of paper because of a smaller format here. Generally speaking, this is not something that I normally use, and it would be good if this would close on the second. It's like, what's your state? Are you open or not? If open and you touch, then close. That would be nice to actually have. Anyway, you have shapes where you can actually choose from different shapes such as straight, wiggly, arrow, line, circle, triangle, square, rhomboid, pentagon, hexagon. And then you can choose the style, how these shapes are filled in with a fill line, dotted line, dashed line, dash dash line, dash dot dash, dash dot dot dash, dash dot dash dot dash, dash dot dot dash, dash dot dash dot dash, dash dot dot dash, dash dot that, whatever. And you also have these colors and the thickness of the lines. Extremely flexible and extremely powerful tool. Then you have your lasso tool, which is used to select sections of the things that you've drawn. You can mirror it horizontally, vertically. You can undo your transformation. You can change the color of the selection, so you can just select a part of the drawing or text that you made and then change the color into, let's say, all of it. I want it to be kind of green. Then you can copy it, copy paste, and you can delete, of course. You can actually also copy, I believe you can copy into a different notebook. Yeah, you can, but you have to go into a notebook and then you would go into the lasso tool and then paste again. This, I don't know. Oh, this is to select the whole screen. Cool. So you have also that toggle to select the whole screen, and then if I wanted to change all of this, for example, to pinkish color, then I can, and maybe that's too pale, and then I can go like this. Oh, that's better. And then I can go like, yeah, I don't like any of these things. I want to go back to the way it was. And it doesn't work. You have the ability to add a text box, then you can type in your text. You have the ability to add a record object into the notebook itself, which allows you to actually record an audio file and make it a part of the notebook itself. AI is text recognition, touch capability on or off if you're encountering issues that you're accidentally swiping pages, or that the palm rejection is not up to par with your writing style or whatever it is that may be. You can disable touch, and actually you can just use these navigation bars up here and circumvent that problem that way. You have the ability to synchronize manually, but automatically they synchronize whenever you get out. You can add a new page. You can do a search, word search, because of the AI recognition. You can do a word search of your notebook, and there's more. You have full screen refresh, delete current page, save the notebook. You can share the notebook. Sharing the notebook can be done in multiple ways. You can share, it has expanded in functionality quite a lot. So now you can share all layers or just the visible layers. And also you can share in different formats. So you can share a single current page as a PNG, or you can share the entire notebook notebook as a bitmap PDF. What does that mean? That means that everything is rasterized down to the base layer of the PDF, which means that the text is not selectable or detectable by the system. But you also have the ability to export as a vector PDF, in which case the exported text in a notebook are vectors. There's pluses and minuses on both of them. Bitmap PDF is naturally a lot smaller in size, so it is much more practical, but you can't really edit anything and you can't do any advanced functions that may depend on the vector functionality. But it also has the limitation that because it's rasterized down, it is of a limited resolution. So when you start zooming in, you will see some pixelization. That being said, the resolution at which is all of that baked down is perfectly adequate. And if you're reading a full page like this of text, you will not see pixels, and it actually works quite nice. On the other hand, you have the vector PDF, which exports as vectors. The text is as vectors. Every stroke is a vector. Naturally, that's a lot more data, but you do have the ability to manipulate that data in other packages if that's what you want. And also, since they are vectors and they are drawn in real time, that means that you will not lose any resolution, so you can zoom infinitely, basically. Then you can actually share that to via any app, because this is an Android, so you just tap on an app, and this is a huge file, 50, so I'm not going to wait for it, but you can share via email or Dropbox or anywhere, any app that you have installed on this one, or you can simply choose to export it manually. I think he's still exporting in the background, so that's why he is not responding, because the cancel that I pressed didn't really quite work. Other functionalities, you can insert an image into your notebook, something that I actually use quite often. Sidebar position, that's what I talked about. You can flip the toolbar to be left hand or right hand side, depending on your preference. And also, powerful thing, you can customize your toolbar. So just tap, nice. Because previously you had like a drag and drop, which was meh. This is much nicer. So you can just kind of tap the things that you want. So canvas I never use, shapes, text I do use, record I use, AI I use, touch I use, page plus, yeah, but not so much, because I actually can insert them here, and then I can now add, for example, share. I do often share, and maybe I want to add the recording option here, and you can choose, should we display the text below icons or not? So that's a big addition from update 3.2.2, so that people can actually grow used to what each icon means and what each icon does. And once you do grow used to it and you can recognize which icon is what, then you can just tap on this one, you get a cleaner UI. But this addition of this simple thing simplifies the learning experience quite a bit, so it's a very nice thing to have. So what is the recording mode here? Recordings, I'll have to read. I don't know. This is a new thing, so I have to kind of double check what that is. I think this is the audio recordings, and then you can choose and then just slap on the one that you had into the notebook, but yeah, possibly that. Oh, and also you can name your notebook here, and you can also select the recent notes, local notes, related documents notes, because you can associate notes to a document, so you can switch that way around. This is a really easy way to go around, and this is something that really helps, because if you want to switch to another notebook and you're switching between two notebooks, all you need to do is go here, there, switch to another one, and you're done. And also that arrow on the side here is how you exit from the note. I have it set up so that it actually saves and synchronizes notes by default when it exits, but this is the type of behavior that you can actually change. And in notes here section, I've customized here that we don't have text, but you can customize that too, so that these icons have text. You also have these three dots here, and then you have sort, list mode, synchronize settings, as I said, and then you have recycle bin, which is kind of cool because we didn't used to have that. So now you can actually get to the recycle bin and get the notes that you may have deleted accidentally, and you can get them back. And also you have additional option settings, and this is where you do your stylus calibration, back and pin restore, password lock settings. That's just a pin code for your local pin code for a notebook. Doesn't export with it, so it's not encryption of any sort, but it does work on the device itself. Autosave options, so you have when, how often will it autosave. Very, very cool to actually have that. AI recognition, language settings, tons of languages to choose from. You can pause and actually see if one of these languages is the one that you are looking for. Auto AI recognition in the background helps out with the how quickly you will be able to do word search in your notebooks. Auto refresh stroke after lifting the stylus. This is an option to actually have the beautification of your strokes as soon as you lift it, but when you actually, it can be a little bit kind of it blinks a lot, so then I prefer to have it off. Automatically full refresh after multiple operations, and then you customize the number of operations. Auto full refresh after zooming, automatically generate PDF files after exiting a notepad, something that I use a lot because when I actually have it in conjunction, I'm not using it here, but on my own personal devices I use it all the time, because I also choose to auto-synchronize certain directories, and this is where I export my notebooks as PDFs every time I exit the notebook, and therefore I have an off-site PDF backup copy of my notebook that way. Completely automated system, and it's a really, really nice one. And then also show close reminder when exiting. So those are your options and the way you can actually manage, and you can of course sort them in folders. As you can see, these are under the folders here. You can search through them, you can add new notebooks, you can add new folders, etc, etc. So really full-on functionality of this whole thing. This is a new icon. What does that do? That just goes to your account. Okay, well, sorry, I was just checking out this. Just noticed something new here. Anyway, that's your functionality of the notebooks. Overall, I really like the notebook functionality and the powerful tools that you have at your disposal on any Boox platform, Boox Nova Air C included, except that this time you have the convenience of actually seeing the colors and writing in colors, and not just seeing those same colors when you export, which is true of every other device. So you can still write in those colors, but you won't see them on the device. So that is an obvious advantage of the Nova Air C. Writing itself feels good. For me, not quite as good as on the Nova Air, but still good enough because it's quick, it's pleasant to use, and it's all fine. I think it's just a matter of personal preference, but if you're looking for papery-like type of writing experience, that is not what you will get here. This is more like a ballpoint pen type of a feel. Still has and surface resistance. It's just a different flavor of a very similar kind of a thing. Overall, excellent device for writing, taking notes, and keeping your writing side of life organized. D.E.S.T.A test on Nova Air C was actually really interesting and useful thing to do, because as you can see from the chart, when you're writing in black color, not only do you have 300 ppi, but you also have the best writing latency performance that it can offer. So it is a little bit faster than what Nova 3 color was at 41.18 milliseconds, and it is definitely faster than the Nova Air itself, because Nova Air was at 45.83 milliseconds. The color performance, writing color on the Nova Air C is again better than what it was, dramatically better than what it was on the Nova 3 color. Nova 3 color was at 60.44 milliseconds, and Nova Air C is now down to 50.84 milliseconds. And just to remind you, that was the blisteringly fast performance that Remarkable One had all those years ago, but now you actually have it in color, and that's a good thing to see. So overall, D.E.S.T.A performance and writing latency for the Nova Air C, not chart-topping or groundbreaking, but again, an incremental movement step up from the previous generation, and it's a good thing to see.